In this video, I'm going to read from my novel, Terry Fox, Somewhere the Hurting Must Stop. This is published by Rocks Mills Press, and you can find out more information about the novel by going to their website, www.rocksmillspress.com. You can also find out more about the novel on my website, which is johnpassfieldbook.ca. I'll just read from the back cover of the novel, which has a very short introduction to the story of Terry Fox. A one-legged boy, Terry Fox, sets himself the task of running a marathon a day across the length of Canada, the second largest country in the world, in aid of cancer research, because the children are crying with pain in the cancer wards, and somewhere the hurting must stop. And for those who don't really know the story of Terry Fox, it's a true story. I have a longer introduction here, which I'd like to read before I start reading from the novel itself. Terry Fox was a young Canadian who was leading what seemed to be a normal life for one of his age, when, at age 18, he was stricken with cancer. His right leg was amputated in an attempt to prevent the spread of the cancer to the rest of his body, and he searched for ways to continue his life in as normal a way as possible. At a certain point, he decided that he would run across Canada on one good leg and one artificial leg in order to raise awareness of the need for cancer research. Canada stretches from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean and through many kinds of terrain and weather, and his run generated an empathetic response from the Canadian community. The publicity which his run generated raised much money for cancer research and became an example of heroic dedication in a selfless cause. He ran a marathon a day for 143 days until the cancer, which had spread to the rest of his body, stopped his run about halfway across the country, and he died shortly after. His story appeals to the imagination as one of courage, self-sacrifice, and hope as a response to the worst that life has to offer, and has been an inspiration to millions, not only in Canada, but around the world. Every year, across the world, there are thousands of runs which are dedicated to promoting cancer awareness and raising research funds, which are organized in the name of Terry Fox. So that's an introduction to the story of Terry Fox and to the novel. I'd like to read now from the novel, and I'm not going to read the novel word for word as printed, but the novel is structured as the thoughts of Terry Fox as he's running across Canada. So I'm going to indicate the run, but not read about the run in detail in this video. But I'm going to read his Terry Fox thoughts as he runs. And what he does is he thinks about his entire life, from really when he was born right up to the time when he's running. But what I'll do is I'll indicate for each chapter where he is when he's thinking, where he is in Canada during the run when he's thinking. I structured the novel in 15 chapters. The first 5 chapters are Terry Fox running across the 5 eastern provinces. The next 5 chapters, 6 to 10, are Terry Fox running across southern Ontario. And then the last 5 chapters, 11 to 15, are Terry Fox running through northern Ontario. So as he runs through the first 5 provinces, he thinks about his early years in this section I'm going to read, from birth to the normal teenage life, then to the advent of cancer, the loss of his leg, and the question of, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So I'll read that section first. I'll indicate as I go which chapter, and for those who might have a copy of the book, which page I'm reading from. Might be interesting for some to follow along that way. Here's chapter 1. The story. I'll just read a bit of. Dipping my leg in the Atlantic Ocean, seagulls circling overhead, muddy water, choppy currents, windy weather. April, in St. John's, Newfoundland. So as he's running through Newfoundland, and that takes most of chapter 1, here's what he's thinking, some of the things he's thinking. I wasn't born in British Columbia. I was born in Winnipeg. That's almost halfway across Canada from BC. Mom grew up on a farm. Dad was a switchman on the railway. They met in Winnipeg and married and settled down. All of us were born in Manitoba. Fred and me and Daryl and Judith. 4 kids, 2 parents. Seems about what a family should be. And then on page 5. I had a nice childhood in Manitoba. Coloring at school, riding my trike, running through the sprinkler in the backyard. Then all of a sudden, we were told we were moving away. My parents decided to move to the coast. Left some relatives behind. Dad said he was starting to think of Manitoba as just too cold. I spent my youth in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. That's about 17 miles from Vancouver. About as good a place as any for someone to be. And on page 7, I like geography as a subject. There were maps at the back of the book. You could trace your finger across the page as you dreamed. Port Coquitlam is in British Columbia. BC's part of Canada. Canada is part of the world. I always thought I'd like to see all of Canada someday. I already knew about Manitoba. Hope to tour all of Canada. Come right back home to BC. And then page 8, 9. Hockey holds Canada together. Hockey and football on TV. 2 of my heroes are Daryl Sittler and Bobby Orr. I love playing hockey on the outdoor rink. We always got lots of winter in BC. Shoveled the rink during the Christmas holidays and played all day. Loved the hockey game I got for Christmas. Challenged everybody to play. Invited the neighborhood kids in and trounced them game after game. And that's chapter 1, what he's thinking as he's running, among many other things, of course. I'm just selecting certain thoughts, the thoughts about his life as he's running across Newfoundland. Here's chapter 2. Great to be in Nova Scotia, between Sydney Mines and Big Brador. 4:30 a.m., silence in the van, no music, no one speaks, poking along in the dark. Of course, as the rest of the novel says, but I won't read, tells you they're looking for the rock or perhaps a small branch of a tree that they've left along the side of the road to indicate where they stopped the day before, he and the other guys in the van. And so they're poking along in the dark trying to find that spot because he ran every inch, every foot, every mile of Canada up until the time that he had to stop. So he wanted to find the exact spot again. Now, as he runs, he's thinking this. Dad never said much, but you always knew what he was thinking. The law was the law, and you always knew what it meant. There was never an inch of leeway when Dad made a rule. Mom was the one to think things over. Oh, first let's talk about it and figure out what to do. Always better to talk to Mom before you decide. There were 4 of us kids in the family. People said we fought like cats and dogs. But let anyone come between us and they'd find out what family means. And then over to page 14. Every one of us foxes was stubborn, for sure. Argue over everything and never, ever give up. In the Fox family, you learn to stick up for yourself. Dad and Mom taught us a lot. Work hard at what you do. Never quit what you start. Give your word and make sure you keep it. Earn your own money as soon as you can. Stick up for family because they're the best thing you've got. And then on page 17, get in your 2 cents if you know you're right. Keep your mouth shut if you're wrong. And don't forget that your parents are always the boss. Stay out of trouble. Keep your nose clean. Don't forget to clean up your room. Don't whine about things you can change. Don't change things without knowing why. And don't ever forget that you're a fox and you know who you are. Page 18. I was always crazy about sports. People would ask me why I took things to such an extreme. I'd shrug and tell them, I guess I just like to compete. Some sports I like better than others. I like cross-country running and basketball, one-on-one, any sport that help you find out what you're made of inside. Cross-country running was really grueling, covered in mud and fighting the heaves. At the end, the coach always waiting to slap our hands and call out, "Way to go, man." And then on to chapter 3. Again, many thoughts in these chapters, but I'm isolating the thoughts about his life from childhood on. Chapter 3, running. Good to be here in Prince Edward Island. That's the third of the Canadian provinces he's running through. Page 23 for the part we're reading right now. Played a lot of basketball. 2 guys snickered when I first went out to play. I looked around and everyone there was taller than me. I could never seem to score. That's what made me get up early for practice. I ran from my house to the high school in the dark. I was a buzzsaw on the court. Wiped the snickers off their faces. If I couldn't score in basketball, I could force those other guys to raise their game. Page 24. I guess it was me against myself. No matter who was in front of me when I was playing in a game, the guy I tried so hard to beat was always me. So I played a lot of sports. The thing that I liked was to try to overcome big odds. Whatever looked too hard, I wanted to try. Long distance running, setting new goals, running past a series of barriers of pain. 26. What to do at the end of childhood. Soon I was going to need a job. How was I going to prepare myself for the rest of my life? Seemed like a good idea to go to university. Spent a whole evening talking it over with Mom. As she talked about courses, I was thinking of nothing but sports. Signed up for kinesiology, science of the body as a servant of the mind. I'd have my sports, and Mom would have her degree. 28. It was tough to sit through English classes, Ode on an Urn and the Isles of Innisfree. I was looking out the classroom window at the football team, wondering why I was in school, wondering what to do with my life. I was the kind who always liked to have a plan. Maybe I could be a high school coach, get to inspire a bunch of boys, the boys who think they don't have what it takes to play on the teams. And now chapter 4. Chapter 4, 4th Canadian province, here it is. Running across New Brunswick between Sackville and Memramcook. Hills of snow, walls of wind, troubles in the van. So, tough times, not easy to run across Canada, but those are sections of a novel I'm not reading right now. What I am reading is Terry Fox thinking about his life. Page 33. Life was good when I was 18, spending time doing what I was good at, gradually figuring out what I'd like to do with my life. Living a life of routine, home, school, track, basketball, running, homework. Getting ready for the rest of my life. A lot of decisions still to be made. Deciding to try to be the best person I could possibly be. Page 34. No more swearing when I lose. Don't take it so much to heart, Terry. You can't expect to be the winner in every game. Trying hard to control my temper. Trying to lose with a bit more grace. Mom telling me I should learn to lose with grace. Deciding that winning was my lifelong goal. You don't feel like swearing when you win. No need for losing with grace when you're hoisting a trophy and grinning from ear to ear. And then page 36. Family, sports on TV, taking Rika out to the movies or to a dance, grinding away at the books. Seemed to be a lot of math in kinesiology. Whoever would have thought that a body was so complex? Now and then a good word from the coach. One day he read out the list. Great feeling to know I'd made the varsity team. And page 38. It comes at you out of the blue. You don't even think about cancer as you go from day to day. Basketball and homework and family and good times with the guys. I was driving my beat up old car, Cortina, 1968, green. Lost my concentration and crunched right into the back of a half-ton truck. Totaled the car, but I got off with what I thought was just a scratch. Banged my knee on the dashboard. Some lingering pain after practices and games. Went to the doctor finally to get a minor thing put right. And now chapter 5, which you could call the end of childhood. Running in Quebec, my 5th province out of 10, running along beside the St. Lawrence River. Again, many thoughts, full chapters, but here's just one section of chapter 5. Blood tests, bone scans, x-rays, in a ward with 8 little boys. Why would there be all this fuss for a pain in the knee? Sad looks on the faces of my parents as they came to see me one day. In my family, you don't keep secrets. We'll give it to you straight, Terry. The doctor says it's cancer of the bone. It's cancer, all right, Terry, the doctor told me. That's what every test has shown. I'm afraid you're going to have to lose the leg. Talks with the doctors, pamphlets to read. Hard to believe that the cancer patient was going to be me. In a cancer ward with the kids. No age limit on cancer. Some kids know cancer before they know how to ride a bike. Then the day finally came. In with 2 legs, out with 1. The second half of my life had just begun. Page 46. Chemotherapy, loss of hair, missing leg. Funny cards that wished me well, asking myself if I was ready to lay down and die. What to do? What to do? I cried a few tears, a lot of tears in fact, while I was wondering what I could do on only 1 leg. Then a boy who was whispering his dreams was cut short by the call for lights out. I woke up to a midnight kerfuffle as the attendants whispered and worked. Next morning the bed was all made, and there was no one there. Page 48. Life in the cancer ward. Death in the cancer ward. The 2 of them side by side in every bed. All anyone wanted to do was to have a good life. Lying awake in the cancer ward, listening to the screams. The screams got more and louder as the night went on. Who was going to ease this pain? There had to be something that someone could do to help these kids. I kept telling myself that somewhere the hurting must stop. And that's the end of the first 5 chapters of a 15-chapter novel about Terry Fox. So in chapters 6 to 10 of the novel, Terry Fox is running through southern Ontario. And as he does so, he's thinking of the story of his life, only one of the layers of thought in his mind as he's running, but the thought about his life goes from the time when he decided what to do with his life as a one-legged person, and then through all the preparation. Well, what he decided to do, of course, was to run across Canada to raise funds for cancer research, not for himself. After he had his leg amputated, he understood he was now cancer-free. But interestingly enough, being 18 years old when he lost his leg, they weren't sure where to put him. They had an adult ward and they had a children's ward, so they just put him in the children's ward. And he was so shocked by the fact that little kids had cancer. He knew he could handle it, but these little kids were screaming all night. They were dying of pain, dying of cancer, but I mean, they were in pain, and some of them did die during the night, and they were just removed from their beds. So he wanted to raise funds for other people cancer research so other people wouldn't have to go through what those little kids went through. So chapters 6 to 10, preparation for the run across Canada. Again, I'll read the slight indicators. There's a lot more in the chapters of where he is when he's running. Chapter 6, Hawkesbury, at the bridge, crossing the Ottawa River into Ontario. The high school band thumping away. He's becoming better known now. Balloons released and drifting up over the trees. So he does become famous in Ontario, and the novel deals with that. But here we are with him thinking. At first, I didn't know whether I was going to live or die. I saw healthy bodies turning into skeletons. I saw smiles turning into grimaces of pain. When I turned out to be one of the lucky ones, I figured it was only right to give something back. The cancer ward is a place that haunts your thoughts forever. It stays inside you, and you can't just walk away. You've seen something that is bored right into your brain. I'm not a great reader of pamphlets. I just skim them and toss them aside. But I could tell that more So, in the third section of the novel, Terry Fox is running in northern Ontario. And southern Ontario in August, the humidity and so on, and also the need, as I mentioned before, to do so many speeches, as wonderful as it was because it raised money for cancer research, was taking a toll. And there was some question as to whether his health was sort of suffering in the long term or just suffering because of southern Ontario, the exhaustion of all the extras, the fundraising appearances, and the humidity of southern Ontario. So the idea was, well, maybe he'll feel better physically when he gets out of southern Ontario. That's all in the novel, but not what I'm reading today. So chapter 11 to 15 in northern Ontario. Here's chapter 11. Running between Aurelia and Severn Bridge, a stride, 2 hops and a stride, running my way out of southern Ontario. And then again, back to the section I'm reading, which is up till now, he's been a young boy. He's developed cancer. He's had his leg removed. Then he figures out what to do with his life, and he's spent 5 chapters in thought, preparing. Now he's spending 5 chapters thinking about the run as it's happening. I dipped my leg in the Atlantic Ocean. The next drop of salt water was 5,000 miles away. I told myself the next time I dipped my leg in salt water, it would be in the Pacific Ocean. I told myself that someday the run would end. Cancer could be beaten. The pain would be gone. I pictured myself in Port Renfrew, raising my arms in the air and dancing around in the waves, shouting, "Every Canadian was with me on the run." Page 104. There's the physical and the mental. Hares lose, turtles win. The biggest difference has to be the shell. People tried to draw me out. Why are you doing this to yourself? I pulled my head back in like a turtle and lived inside. Page 106. I tried to separate myself from everything that I thought would hold me back. I had to put everything into the run. I had to withdraw from people in order to survive. Rika wanted to come on the run, but I told her no. She used to come into the house and type my essays and time me when I went out on those practice runs. It was a relationship that I had to leave behind. Even Doug and I had our problems. He was like a brother to me. Some brothers get along great and some not so well. Page 108. I didn't feel that it was unfair. That's the thing about cancer. I wasn't the only one. It happens all the time to all kinds of people. I learned to joke about it in the classrooms. I showed the kids my mechanical leg. I told them I only wore out half as many socks. My hair wasn't curly until I got cancer. Excuse me. The curly hair improved my looks. People smiled when I told them that cancer was good to me. Chapter 12. Running in northern Ontario. Nothing but me and the rocks and the trees. I don't allow myself to think about Rika. She'll be there when I get back to BC. Page, excuse me, 113. I settled into a routine. The van went ahead 1 mile exactly. I ran to the van, got a So in this video, I've read from one layer of thought in the mind of Terry Fox as he runs across Canada from the novel which I have written, Terry Fox, Somewhere the Hurting Must Stop. And there's just a few things I want to say in conclusion. I'd like to read a passage from a journal which I wrote, and I'll talk about my planning notebook, my journal, in a minute. But here's the passage. The Terry Fox story appeals to me because it is a story in which a community comes to see itself as a unit, as a result of the actions of one of its own, in seeking to run across the entire width of a continent in order to serve his fellow citizens. What is pleasing is that what can truly be called a Canadian myth, the disabled Canadian boy who runs a marathon a day in order to save his fellow Canadians from harm, can easily serve as a universal myth. The disabled boy who runs a marathon a day in an attempt to save his fellow cancer victims and all potential cancer victims from harm, without having to remove or ignore anything that makes it a national myth of his own country, Canada. The spread of the run for cancer to many countries of the world, 80 countries, as of the year 2016 when I was writing the novel, under the banner of the Terry Fox Run for Cancer Research, testifies to the universality of the Terry Fox myth. I'd also like to read another short passage. The novel presents Terry Fox running against a vast Canadian landscape, overcoming the difficulties of harsh conditions and his diminishing health, and winning the hearts of Canadians by his determination to run across Canada. He does so not for personal glory, but in order to raise funds for cancer research. In doing so, he achieves world stature as an icon of courage and determination. My book is a Canadian novel about a Canadian story with worldwide appeal. Now, there's a few websites I'd like to mention. The book is on Amazon. It's also at Rocks Mills Press, ROCKSMILLSPRESS.com. There's more information there, and the book can be purchased from there. There's more information at my website, which is johnpassfield, all one word, .ca. On that website, on my website, there are 2 free books about Terry Fox. I always write a novel, which I've been reading from. While doing so, I write a planning notebook wherein I plan the novel and figure out how I'm going to structure it and write it. If you go to my website, johnpassfield.ca, go to Planning Notebooks, click on that, then click on the Terry Fox icon. You get the whole book for free. There's no charge for that. It's a whole book. There's also a journal, which I read from in a couple of these passages, and if you go to the same website, johnpassfield.ca, click on journals, and then click on the Terry Fox journal, you'll get a whole book. And the journal is my reflections on the novel after I've written it, what I think about Terry Fox, Canada, novel writing, myth, and so on. So those 2 books are available for free. Lastly, I'd like to say this, like every word of the novel, except a few words that I took from the media who quoted Terry Fox, is under copyright because I wrote it, but it's been enjoyable for me to read from my novel, but I'd like to think that someday I'll sit and watch a video and there'll be a young person, young, athletic, handsome, freckle-faced, curly-haired, a person who looks just like Terry Fox who will read those same words, and I'll enjoy watching that video and listening to those words read by a person who looks like Terry Fox. So if anyone looks like Terry Fox and would like to do that, or knows anyone who'd like to do that, I'll give permission. If you write to John Passfield Book, all one word, I guess you'd say, those 3 words together, book with no S, johnpassfieldbook@gmail.com, I'll gladly dialogue with you and give that permission. And lastly, I'd like to say thank you for watching the video. The book is Terry Fox, Somewhere the Hurting Must Stop, a novel by me, John Passfield. Thank you.